There's a peculiar beauty in scraps. The torn cloth, the bent nail, the half-burned candle, the notebook with too many crossed-out pages. In a world where the occult marketplace offers polished tools, glossy books, and curated aesthetics, scraps are a quiet rebellion. They remind us that magic does not live in pristine displays or perfectly lit altars. It thrives in the messy, the improvised, the lived in. A witch with nothing but a string, a rock, and their breath can conjure just as fiercely as one with gilded chalices and hand-carved staves. Scraps are not signs of lack, they are the residue of living, a collection of what remains when life is stripped of glamour. And it is often in the residue that magic stirs most powerfully. The punk spirit of make do and make it your own is woven into every spell cobbled together, from candle stubs into every charm written on a napkin, into every ritual performed in a cramped bedroom rather than in a temple. To build from scraps is to affirm that the sacred is never out of reach. It is to refuse the narrative that power belongs only to those with wealth, connections, or tradition behind them. In scraps, we find freedom. In scraps, we find creativity. And in scraps, we find authenticity, because no one can hand you your practice fully formed. You make it from what's left, what's available, what's yours. This is the heart of DIY occultism, not polished perfection, but fierce creation from fragments. And just as a reminder, Punk Magic has its own Patreon page. If you'd like to go join there, it's completely free. It's open to the public and everything else. There is a tier for $5 in case you do want to support the movement or the idea. And it's not just the videos that I post here that get added there. There's also a zine that I create and upload monthly. You get access to that. So, as I said, it is free, but if you do want to show your support, just join the $5 tier, and I really, really do appreciate it. It obviously goes a long way. But now, back to the video. One of the most persistent traps in occultism is the myth of the perfect practice, the idea that somewhere out there is a system so complete, a lineage so pure, or a toolkit so refined that only by acquiring it can you truly become a witch, magician, or mystic. This illusion is fed by social media aesthetics, glossy occult publishing, and the commercial drive to sell you the next deck or artifact. It whispers that you aren't ready yet, that you need more before you can even begin. The truth is that no such perfection exists. Every magical tradition has contradictions. Every lineage is fractured. Every tool is a stand-in rather than an ultimate. Even the most formal ceremonial systems were stitched together from older fragments, their practitioners improvising in ways that would scandalize the purists of the day. And what looks polished is often just well-curated scraps. The danger of chasing perfection is paralysis. When you're waiting for the right grimoire, the consecrated blade, or the ideal teacher, you put off the work that actually matters, showing up and practicing. The spiritual consumerism of one more purchase becomes a substitute for engagement. But magic does not ask for completeness, it asks for commitment. Scrap-built practice is an antidote to this myth. It says, begin now with what you have. Your rituals do not need to be flawless, they need to be alive. Imperfection is not a barrier, but an entry point, because magic, at its core, is about transformation, not presentation. Strip away the surface details of robes, tools, or tradition, and every magical practice rests on a handful of essential ingredients. These are not dependent on wealth, lineage, or formal training. They are capacities any practitioner can cultivate, even working with scraps. The first is intention and will. And its simplest, magic is focused desire given form. It begins with clarity, knowing what you seek to change, heal, protect, or awaken. Tools amplify this, but they do not substitute for it. A clear, steady will can charge a glass of water with more potency than any unfocused mind wielding an ornate wand. The second is connection. Magic links us to self, to spirits, to the land, to cosmic patterns. Connection can be cultivated by paying attention, listening to dreams, honoring the turning seasons, greeting the spirits of hearth or street corner. Even a scrap of earth in a jar can be an anchor to the living world. Third comes action. Magic is not thought alone but embodied. This is where ritual, spellcraft, meditation, or divination take place. The doing that gives shape to intent. It doesn't matter if the action is elaborate or improvised, only that it is done with presence. Finally, reflection. A journal, a voice memo, or even quiet recollection ensures you learn from your workings. Magic becomes deeper when you notice patterns, refine techniques, and witness transformation over time. Together, these ingredients form the bones of any practice. Everything else is ornamentation. Occult tools are often imagined as rare or specialized, a silver chalice, an ebony wand, a crystal sphere. But in practice, the world is already full of tools waiting to be claimed. When you strip away expectation, scraps become sacred. A chipped mug can serve as a chalice. A bowl of soil becomes an altar to earth. A length of string, tied and knotted, carries intention as well as any cord consecrated in ceremony. Candle stubs, the remnants of everyday life, are especially powerful because they have already burned, already transformed themselves, and are now ready to burn again for your work. Coins, keys, feathers, and stones all hold energy and symbolism without needing to be bought from an occult shop. Nature itself provides in abundance. Fallen branches are wands. Shells become offering vessels. Leaves and herbs gathered from the garden or pavement crack with the same power as anything purchased in neat jars. The act of foraging or of finding what calls to you is a ritual in itself. And then there are technological scraps. Old phones repurposed as sigil chargers, USB sticks used as talismans, lines of code turned to spells. A broken earbud can become a charm for listening to the inner voices. These scraps remind us that magic moves with the times, adapting to whatever tools our age produces. To craft with scraps is to transform the mundane into the magical. Every object, however humble, becomes charged with meaning when you choose to see it as part of your working. Magic is woven from words as much as from tools. Yet many practitioners hesitate, believing they need the right chants from old grimoires or the perfect prayers lifted from tradition. But some of the most powerful texts in occult practices are the ones you write yourself. Scraps of poetry, phrases caught in the moment, fragments scribbled in the margins of notebooks, or have a look at the lyrics of some of your favorite punk songs. A charm does not have to be ancient to be effective. Writing your own incantation ties the words directly to your intent, giving them a resonance no borrowed formula can match. Even a single sentence repeated with conviction can be a spell. A sigil sketched on the back of an envelope, a line of verse jotted on a bus ticket. These are texts born of immediacy, pulsing with personal energy. Scrapbuilding also means remixing. Take a line from a psalm, pair it with a verse from a song, add your own words in between. Zine culture teaches us that cutting, collaging, and repurposing is a form of authorship. Your grimoire doesn't need to be a leather-bound tome. It can be a binder, a folder of scraps, or a digital document on your phone. What matters is that it's living, changing with you. Pop culture, memes, even graffiti can carry a magical charge. If a phrase sticks in your head, it may already be a spell waiting to be spoken. The texts of your practice don't need to be polished, they need to be alive, raw, and yours. When building a practice from scraps, spirits don't have to come fully catalogued or formally summoned. They appear in fragments, in whispers, in overlooked corners of life. The world is alive with them. Household presences, ancestors, stray energies, and overlooked local spirits. Approaching them from a scrap-based perspective means starting small, noticing signs, and learning to recognize patterns. A single coin left on a doorstep, the sudden call of a bird, a dream that refuses to fade, these are all invitations to dialogue. Modern scrap practitioners can also work with digital spirits, servitors built from intention and energy, AI companions or symbolic entities created in code function as extensions of your will and focus. They need not be elaborate. Even a simple icon on a phone or a programmed reminder can serve as a vessel for interaction. The key is consistency and attention. Spirits respond to the care and focus you invest, not to the cost or polish of their container. Building relationship from scraps is an exercise in subtlety. Rather than demanding presence or control, notice what emerges in your life. Respect develops naturally as you track synchronicities, record dreams, and engage in small offerings. Over time, even these improvised, fragmented relationships deepen, teaching lessons and granting power in ways no formulaic ritual could predict. Scrap-built spirit work is humble, adaptive, and accessible. It reminds us that connection is more important than hierarchy, and that power grows not from expensive tools or formal authority, but from attention, respect, and imagination. A common misconception is that a magical practice requires rigid schedules, elaborate rituals, or adherence to a single tradition. In a scrap built practice, structure is flexible, modular, and made to serve your life, not the other way around. You can borrow pieces from different sources with syncretic approach. Meditation from one tradition, divination from another, a spell framework you've invented yourself, and weave them together into something coherent. The key is repetition, reflection, and intentionality, not perfection. Daily, weekly, or monthly rhythms can be improvised. Perhaps you check in with your altar each morning, light a candle each Friday, or perform a small divination at the new moon. Even a single minute of focused attention counts as practice. Scrap built structure allows you to respond to life's chaos using whatever resources are available. A routine is less about strict ritual and more about creating consistent opportunities for engagement with your magic. Journaling, lists of intention, or even voice notes act as scaffolding, giving fragments a sense of continuity. You don't need a leather bound book. A pile of sticky notes or a note app can trace your growth over time. The beauty of scrap structure is adaptability. A system built from fragments can expand, contract, and transform your needs rather than requiring you to abandon it because circumstances change. It cultivates resilience, teaching that magic is alive, improvisational, and deeply personal. By choosing your building blocks carefully and reflecting on your work, you create a practice that is uniquely yours, coherent in purpose, even if patchworked in form. While scrap-built occultism offers freedom and creativity, it comes with unique challenges. The very flexibility that makes it empowering can also lead to incoherence. Without a guiding framework, practices may feel scattered, making it difficult to measure progress or understand the impact of your work. Keeping a journal, tracking outcomes, and periodically reviewing your methods can help maintain cohesion without sacrificing improvisation. Another challenge is discernment. When building from fragments, found objects, digital tools, and personal symbols, it's easy to accumulate too much. Not every scrap carries energy or relevance. Some items, rituals, or ideas may dilute rather than enhance your practice. Learning to distinguish what resonates, what works, and what is purely ornamental is essential. This requires self-reflection, experimentation, and sometimes the humility to discard what no longer serves. Scrap-built magic can also flirt with superficiality. Improvised rituals, digital sigils, and playful spells may seem less serious, especially compared to formal ceremonial systems. Discipline matters. Even small, humble workings gain depth through repetition, focus, and attention. Finally, there's the risk of spiritual hoarding, collecting objects, spells, or fragments without integrating them. Scraps are not treasures in themselves. Their value emerges only through use and relationship. Balancing play with responsibility ensures that your practice remains alive, meaningful, and transformative. In acknowledging these challenges, scrap building becomes not a shortcut, but a deliberate, skillful art. It encourages creativity, adaptability, and personal growth while demanding mindfulness, honesty, and patience. Improvisation is the lifeblood of scrap-built magic. When you cannot rely on a perfect set of tools, a formal ritual, or a complete tradition, you learn to respond with creativity, presence, and intuition. Like jazz, magic built from scraps thrives in the space between structure and chaos, where spontaneity meets intention. Each working becomes unique, adapted to the circumstances and materials at hand. Improvisation cultivates resilience. If a candle breaks, a tool is lost, or an ingredient is unavailable, a scrap practitioner finds alternatives. A pebble becomes a talisman, a candle stub becomes an offering, a phrase from a song becomes a chant. In this way, a scrap-built magic mirrors life, flexible, adaptive, and alive. The unexpected becomes opportunity, not obstacle. Improvised practice also deepens engagement. When you create in the moment, you bring your full awareness to the work. Every choice, how to fold a piece of paper, what words to speak, how to arrange objects, these all become an act of authorship and devotion. This attentiveness amplifies the potency of ritual, imbuing ordinary materials with extraordinary charge. In scrapbuilding, improvisation is not a fallback, it is the practice itself. It teaches that true power is born not from polished tools or elaborate systems, but from the willingness to create, adapt, and act in the moment with intention and care. So to illustrate how scrap-built magic works in practice, let's walk through a simple ritual created entirely from accessible materials. This is a grounding and protection working designed for anyone with limited resources. So materials you'll need: a small bowl, water, a candle stub, a stone, a piece of string, and a notebook. Each item holds symbolic or practical significance. Water represents clarity. The candle brings transformation. The stone embodies stability, and the string acts as a focus for intent. So step one is preparation. Clear a small space on a table or on the floor. Place the bowl of water at the center as a symbolic anchor. Arrange the stone nearby and lay the candle stub within reach. Take a few deep breaths, inviting focus and presence. Then moving on to step two, setting intention. Write a simple phrase in the notebook, such as "I am grounded and protected," or draw a personal sigil. Speak it aloud while holding the stone and letting the words imprint into your awareness. Then step three, action. Light the candle stub and allow it to burn safely. Trace the string around the bowl or your own wrists, imagining a protective barrier forming. Sprinkle a few drops of water around your space, visualizing cleansing and clarity. And step four, reflection. Sit quietly, observing sensations, thoughts, or images that arise. Note them in your notebook afterward. Extinguish the candle when finished and store the objects together if you wish to reuse them in future workings. This ritual demonstrates how ordinary, scrap-based items can carry symbolic weight and magical energy. Even without expensive tools or formal training, focused intent and careful attention transform fragments of everyday life into a potent personal practice. Scrap magic is both survival and art. It is survival because it teaches resourcefulness, the ability to work with what is at hand, to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, and to find spiritual power in fragments of life. It is art because it is deeply personal, improvisational, and expressive, reflecting the practitioner's vision, intuition, and lived experience. Every ritual, charm, or sigil crafted from scraps carries a signature that no polished, mass-produced tool can replicate. Working with scraps reminds us that magic does not require permission. You do not need a lineage, a grimoire, or a complete altar to begin. What matters is presence, intention, and courage, the willingness to act, improvise, and engage with the world and the unseen. In this way, scrap-built practice becomes a statement that the sacred is not confined to temples, shops, or expensive objects, but is alive in the streets, in the home, and in the hands of anyone who chooses to see it. Moreover, the process of building from scraps cultivates resilience. It trains the practitioner to adapt, to experiment, and to embrace imperfection as a source of creativity and power. It turns limitations into opportunity, mess into meaning, and fragments into whole experiences of spiritual growth. Ultimately, scrap magic celebrates the beauty of imperfection, the power of imagination, and the freedom of self-made practice. It invites you to begin now with what is available and to watch as everyday objects, discarded fragments, and improvised texts become vessels of transformation. In scraps, you find not just magic, but your own creative sovereignty.